guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is my ultimate beginner's guide to Destiny Rising, taking you from your first day playing the game, starting the campaign, through to Endgame. And we'll be talking about a ton of systems in this video, from the way to begin with the campaign, through to the different modes, character draws, the Acclaim system, power, exotics, relic abilities, artifact guilding, and even a bunch of endgame tips as well. There's so much to cover, but by the end of the video, you are going to be a Destiny Rising pro. And if you ever get lost, you can always refer to the chapter markers that we've got in the video description as well. So let's get started. The first thing that you should do in the game is complete the main story quest. This should be your focus at basically all times, unless you've already done it, because it's going to unlock core activities and features that are really important for leveling your account and your characters and your abilities. Now, the quest itself is broken into chapters that give you an overview of what systems are being unlocked, and it also just works as a set of tutorials for virtually everything as you move through all the systems of the game. So this means the first few days of you playing Destiny Rising are probably going to mostly be spent playing through the story, spending your daily pinnacle energy for XP to increase your team level, which is your account level, and also keeping an eye on the events tab. Now, this has several long-term events that are permanent until you've fully unlocked or exhausted all of the rewards from them. And these are important to keep track of for extra resources that are useful for leveling your characters. Examples of this include Wolf's Ascension and Ascending Lights. Those, I'd say, are the big ones. And Wolf is the character that you're going to be really focusing on leveling at the start of the campaign. Other events are also useful, but might take more time to progress through for rewards, so you can worry about those a little less to begin with. But as you go through the campaign, you're going to start realizing that you need to level 3 characters through the story, and Wolf has to be one of those characters because they're required for a ton of main story missions. So anytime you get an opportunity to level Wolf as you're going, you should probably do it. It's just going to be a good idea as you're getting started. Now, a word of warning for you as you get towards the end of the main story is that your Relic abilities, which is your super and 2 abilities, passive traits, and weapon mastery, can be fully refunded, but only before you complete the final main story mission. So when you're going through that campaign, don't be afraid to experiment with different characters as you progress, because you can always just refund those resources and try going about things a different way because you know you have that refund available. Now, on the topic of leveling those characters and also on the topic of relic abilities, you're going to need materials for upgrading those relic abilities and also enhancing weapons. And if you're familiar with Destiny 2, that's similar to masterworking. And also earning and enhancing your artifacts. And you'll get those materials from several different activities. To run through a few of those now, in the Haven Ops menu, you've got Strikes or Gauntlet Ops, and Blitz is in there. And Blitz unlocks around level 40. And they are activities for weapons and enhancement materials for the weapon enhancement process. You've also got Realm of the Nine, Singularity Order, and Singularity Chaos. And those give artifacts and elemental fruit, which are used for weapon mastery under the relic abilities screen. You've also got Legacy, which is your main source of incandescence material, which is used for upgrading relic abilities. And at team level 46, you unlock element-specific versions of the mode, and this gives more of that specific element and less of the other 2. So for example, Void-focused Legacy gives 6 Void incandescence and 1 solar and 1 arc incandescence, because you've basically focused Void there. Another activity is Morgren's Prey. This is your main source of mod upgrade materials and another source for weapon enhancement prisms as well. And this gives more weapon enhancement prisms than Strikes or Gauntlet Ops, but there are several exchanges in the game that have enhancement prism selections, so I wouldn't spend tons of pinnacle energy here for them unless you absolutely need those prisms. Then we've got Calamity Ops. this is going to unlock a bit later at team level 71. These are strikes with a scoring system, and as you progress in ranks, the recommended power level will also increase, and the first time you reach a rank will reward you with incandescence clusters, which we will talk about more later, so stay tuned for that. And then an honorable mention here for another activity is shifting gates, which is the 18-player Gambit-like mode, and it's mostly used to purchase materials from the shifting gates exchange. This can be very worth spending pinnacle energy on if you want any of the materials that are available, and these are on a weekly limit. And also, shifting gates is just really cool. It's a cooler version of Gambit in my opinion, so it's worth checking out. Now, if at any point you're overwhelmed with all of these activities and you're stressing about which one you should do or what comes from where, you can click on a given material that you need and select source for a list of acquisition methods. And like I said before, if you check the events tab, you might have some rewards waiting for you in there as well. So that's the main story quest and some of the activities that you'll unlock as you level your team, and also some of the materials that you can earn from those activities. Next, we're going to take a quick second to talk about character draws and Lumia leaves, because you're going to see the game introduce those systems to you like right at the start of the game, basically. So running through some info on these now, character draws are, simply put, how you get new characters. This is the system that is going to allow you to try and draw for those new fancy characters that come out regularly, and to expand the kind of arsenal of your team, like expand your roster. Now, if you completely ignored this system, the game would still give you some characters for free, just like as you're playing, but by interacting with the character draw system is how you're going to get the fancy stuff. Character draws use a currency called Bon Voyage Charms and Bon Voyage Charms LE. Regular Bon Voyage Charms are the blue ones, and they are used specifically for permanent banner draws. So that's when you go to the draw menu, this is the orange bar that says permanent, and these never leave the game. However, there's also the Bon Voyage Charms LE, which are the purple boats, and those are used for limited time character banners. And typically, these banners last for around a month. Now, when using draws on the permanent banner, only ever select draw times 10 for the first 50 draws. This is because you're given a 20% discount, so it's only going to cost 8 charms for 10 draws instead of the full 10 charms. However, after you've used draw times 10 5 times, the discount disappears, and you can then just draw whichever way you like. So how do you get more of these Bon Voyage charms? Well, Lumia leaves can be exchanged for both the regular charms and the charms LE. And a big tip here is do not spend Lumia leaves on the regular Bon Voyage charms. That's the blue ones, okay? Because the permanent banner will always be there. So you should save your Lumia leaves for Bon Voyage Charms LE, because there are a ton of sources for you to get the regular Bon Voyage charms anyway, without spending those Lumia leaves. And you might as well save them for the thing in the game that is limited time. As always, also, both charms are available to be bought in the store through different bundles and in the black market, should you so desire as well. Next, let's talk about the Acclaim system. This is the main endgame system, and it's going to unlock once you've completed the main story quest. And as you've gone through the game, you might have noticed that there are certain systems that have been still locked, and they say that they require certain Acclaim rank, and that's what we're going to start working on now. So there's a ton of systems that will unlock as you raise your Acclaim level. So to do that, you're going to need Acclaim XP, and that's granted by completing character challenges, as you can see right here in the game's menus, and by filling out armory collections. And filling those out will also grant you extra effects on the origin trait for that Foundry's weapons as well, but that's a little aside. So when I say there are a lot of systems behind these Acclaim levels, I really mean it. It's exotic mods, it's exotic artifacts, it's leveling up your relic abilities, your weapon mastery, your relic traits, your artifacts, your mods, your weapon enhancement, your catalyst upgrades. There's just so much here, so you really need to focus up on getting that Acclaim XP. So I mentioned the character challenges, right? That's one way to get yourself the Acclaim XP that you're looking for. And if we go to this Legends tab, this is full of character challenges and power requirements, and they're broken down into 3 medal types: bronze, silver, and gold. And you must fully complete a set of a character's tasks to earn the associated medal. And because of this, this is the point in your progression journey in Destiny Rising where hard focusing on characters is very beneficial. So if you fully invest into 3 characters that you are interested in playing long term, it's going to mean that your progress is significantly faster compared to the scenario where you're all over the place with which characters you want to use. And the reason being, we've just said, right, that you have to fully complete a character's tasks to earn the associated medal. So if you're scattershot, you're not going to get a lot of medals. And the problem then is that that's going to gate you from progressing your acclaim levels. Whereas if you do hard focus, you're going to get a load of medals and you'll then be able to get those higher acclaim levels going. So level 10 acclaim requires 3 bronze medals total. Level 15 requires 3 silvers, 20 requires a gold, and 25 requires 2 golds. So hard focusing here is going to be very beneficial to your progress. And if you're worrying about this, like if you're trying to do it and you're stressing and you're like, ooh, this is a little bit fiddly, just trust me, it's going to get easier the later into your acclaim levels that you get. Like the deeper you get into that system, it's just going to make your life easier in a variety of areas. So just persevere and it will all work out. So as you're doing that, the most difficult task to complete under each character's task list is reaching power requirements. So what can we do to achieve the max amount of power possible? Well, to do that, we're going to talk about power in a more general sense. It's broken down into 4 parts. You've got character level, which is basically a non-factor at this stage of the game since you should already be at the maximum team level. But then you've also got weapons, relic abilities, and artifacts. So let's go through these one by one real quick. For weapons, mythic and exotic weapons give the most power. Mythic weapons gain more power depending on the rarity or tier of the traits they roll, and purple or legendary traits give less power to the weapon than orange or mythic traits do. Now, these mythic weapons come from many different sources in the game. Haven Ops, Strikes, and Calamity Ops, for example, as well as Gauntlet Ops, Gauntlet Blitz, and Gauntlet Onslaught. Those are the main activity sources for them. And on top of that, farming those activities is going to earn you mythic weapon parameters, and those are used to craft mythic weapons. So not only are you farming the mythic weapons from the activities, but you're also farming the materials that you need in order to craft them, which is nice. And this can be done infinitely without spending pinnacle energy. So that's mythic weapons. Exotic weapons are much rarer. Their drop chance without pinnacle energy is about 1% per completion reward, and even with pinnacle energy, they're still very rare. It's only about 3%. Now, Gauntlet Onslaught has a weekly reward with boosted exotic weapon drop rates. However, it's more likely to give you an exotic that's specific to that encounter. So Break-In, the exotic crossbow, the Menace Above, exotic shotgun, Issachar's Tabernacle, exotic machine gun. And so separate to those weapons from those activities, outside of spending your pinnacle energy for exotics, you can do bounties for a weekly chance at an exotic engram as well. Now, the caveat with this is it can only give you exotics you've already received, and the weekly bounty reward track also gives you exotic weapon parameters, which are used to craft various random exotic engrams, similar to the mythic weapon parameters. Each of these engrams have different exotic weapon pools as well, so choose wisely. Now, once you've got yourself some exotic weapons, you're going to notice that you can't put mods on them, right? And so we're going to be gaining power from those exotic weapons through 3 mechanics: weapon enhancement, obviously, but then catalysts and catalysis. So let's talk about those now. Catalysts can be crafted with 90 contextual data sets, and these are acquired through legendary campaign missions. And those missions grant increased pinnacle rewards for the first 3 rewards granted per week as well. So those are definitely worth keeping an eye on. This is the only way also to acquire contextual data sets. So when you reach Acclaim level 10, the challenge difficulty of legendary campaign missions will become available, and the legendary campaign missions have time trials associated with them to earn bonus rewards. The base difficulty will only allow you to complete these one time. However, challenge difficulty has separate time trials that reset every week. So doing the time trials on challenge difficulty alongside the 3 increased pinnacle rewards that I mentioned before is enough to craft a catalyst every single week. Once you've got that catalyst, there are then catalyst bans, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So legendary campaign missions also reward you with exotic weapon infusion cores and superposed photons, and these are used in catalysis and later catalyst upgrades as well. I just wanted to mention that here so you knew where those came from. Now, like I said, after your catalyst, you've then got catalyst bans, and these are further upgrades to the catalyst itself, and those are going to grant a plus 1,000 power to your exotic weapon. And this is a significant power increase for these. So despite the fact that they're very expensive to invest into, it's something that you're going to probably want to pay close attention to. Now, exotic weapons have 7 catalysis nodes as well, right? Catalysts separate to catalysis. Each node on that catalysis page gives stats to the weapon you're upgrading, but each node also increases in cost. So once again, it's expensive to invest into, so only spend these on exotics you plan on using for the long term, on characters that you're also planning to use for Acclaim medals for the long term. But once you've decided which of those characters you want to do this with, yeah, it's definitely worth doing. Now, keep in mind that catalysts and catalysis upgrades are irreversible, so a little bit of planning goes a long way here. Also, never, ever dismantle exotic weapons, okay? Just in case you were thinking of doing that, don't do it, because you need 3 copies of an exotic weapon to fully upgrade its catalyst, so you don't want to be that guy that realizes too late that you've been scrapping all the copies you needed and then hate your life and have to go farm. Don't do that. So I mentioned catalysts, I mentioned catalysis. We also need to mention enhancement levels as well, right? So those grant you more power on your weapons, and getting weapons to enhancement plus 10 is really important. Now, to get there, levels 8 and 10 of enhancement require mythic infusion cores, and level 10 also requires another material called luminite. Now, the good news is Haven Ops, Strikes, and Calamity Ops, as well as Gauntlet Blitz on Heroic, can give you Mythic Infusion Cores and Luminite. And you can also buy Mythic Infusion Core selection chests, as well as Luminite selection chests, from the Shifting Gates exchange that I talked about earlier. So there's another reason to play some Shifting Gates. Mythic Infusion Core selection chests are 5 chests per week, and it's 10 per chest, while Luminite are 2 chests per week, and those grant 5 per chest. So those are your enhancements, your catalysts, and your catalysis. I also mentioned you can't put weapon mods on your exotic weapons, right? But these are a huge source of weapon power. So let's talk about those now real quick. Mods upgrade the level of your weapon traits up to level 5, and higher rarity mods also give you more power. Exotic mods, unlike the other rarities of mods, are guaranteed to give you level 5 for a trait, and they also randomly roll for mythic perk upgrades, which grant additional power when paired with the perk that it's upgrading. And on top of that, they also make the perk associated with the upgrade gain an additional effect. So these probably sound pretty attractive to get. Let's talk about how you get them. So mythic mods, just like everything else weapon related, come from Heroic Strikes, Calamity Ops, and Heroic Gauntlet Ops. Mods can also be acquired from front lines. Those are destination activities similar to public events, and there's 3 stages of them, and then a final boss, and once the boss is dead, you claim rewards from the chest with frontline keys, and the frontline keys come from doing bounties, and the bounties are limited to 6 per week, but they're worth doing because they can give you mods. You can also get exotic mods from the same activities, but at a much lower drop rate, and exotic mods are also locked until you reach Acclaim level 10, which requires those 3 bronze medals I mentioned before, and once you reach that Acclaim level 10, and once you reach 50,350 power, you'll be able to use the Challenge Mode tab to do Master Difficulty Strikes and Gauntlet Blitz. Now, this isn't just a free lunch, because Challenge Mode rewards require you to use challenge keys on them. There's like a sort of separate special chest at the end. You're given 3 of these challenge keys per week for free, and you can buy more with Lumia leaves, silver, or different bundles in the store. But master difficulty activities function differently than heroic difficulty. So once you've used a character to claim rewards from a challenge mode chest, that character will have their energy depleted, and that will then mean that you won't be able to use them in challenge mode again until the next day. So just heads up on that. Now, an important note about challenge key rewards: exotic and mythic mods differ between strikes and gauntlet blitz. So strikes reward mods for rapid fire weapons and piercing weapons, while Gauntlet Blitz gives mods for impact weapons and spread weapons. But this only applies when spending challenge keys. So that's our weapons section. Lots of information there. Let's now move on and talk about relic abilities. So by this point in the game, you've already done the main quest like we talked about. You're probably pretty familiar with relic abilities, relic traits, and weapon mastery, but let's just go through a couple of details. They're leveled primarily with incandescence materials and elemental fruits, as we talked about a bit before. And speaking of stuff we mentioned before, do you remember when I mentioned incandescence clusters? You use those materials to get to level 16 to 18 of your relic abilities, your relic trait 3, and weapon mastery level 5 as well. Now, as I mentioned, these mostly come from Calamity Ops, and Calamity Ops are strikes with a timer and scoring system, and the longer you take, the lower your score multiplier becomes, so you've got to be Speedy Gonzalez. And Calamity Ops has a ranks system as well, and those ranks are broken up into the relegation zone, unchanged zone, and promotion zone. So if you're in the relegation zone, you'll demote a rank once the current cycle is over. If you're unchanged, you guessed it, you won't change. And if you're in the promotion zone, as it says, it will promote you in rank. So if you're able to reach above the point threshold at the end of the promotion zone, you'll automatically increase in rank. And this is relevant to you because the first time you reach a rank, like each time you reach a new rank for the first time and you higher rank, you are going to be rewarded with incandescence clusters. And these clusters are very limited. So spend them carefully, or you're going to be stuck waiting for the 2-week cycle period to end to be awarded more. But there is a chance that you need to wait that cycle out anyway, because as you go up those ranks, you're going to start noticing that there's a different power requirement and difficulty increases as you climb those ranks. So this isn't a complete walk in the park by any means. We're now going to move on to artifacts and artifact gilding. Now, buckle up, chat, okay? Because artifacts are by far the most complex part of power levels, all right? So walk with me here. Artifact power is broken down into 6 sections. We are only going to focus on the ones that are the most straightforward for power increases, because at the end of the day, this is meant to be getting you up to speed on those fundamental systems in the game, right? So we're going to focus on gear level, artifact perk level, artifact enhancement, and artifact gilding. Let's go one by one. Artifact gear level is pretty self-explanatory, right? Higher rarities have higher base power, mythics have 700 base power, and exotics have 800 base power. So that's nice and easy. Next is artifact perk level, also in the game called artifact tier, and this increases based on the attribute score of artifacts. So as you increase your attribute score, your perk level also increases, and you can increase attribute score by refactoring your artifacts, which we'll talk about more in a second. Now, reaching higher perk levels grant you larger power increases, which makes mythic and exotic artifacts really important for reaching the power requirements for a character's tasks to earn those medals that we were talking about before. You remember those? So your next question is probably, where do I get my artifacts from? So artifacts primarily come from Singularity Chaos, and you can infinitely farm this without pinnacle energy for lower drop rates. Or if you do have pinnacle energy, then perfect, you'll have the higher drop rates. Now, unlike mythic rarity and lower artifacts, exotic artifacts are element locked, meaning solar characters can only use solar exotic artifacts, or void can only use void, etc. Now, a second ago, I mentioned artifact refactoring, right? And I said we would come back to that. So Singularity Chaos also awards materials for artifact refactoring, which you unlock at Acclaim level 10. And this is the system for re-rolling and increasing artifact attribute scores. Exotic artifacts require artifactual essence, which is mostly acquired from spending pinnacle energy in Singularity Chaos. And you can also get some from the Expanse, but you won't be able to get those until you're close to finishing a silver medal task set. So we're just not going to worry about talking about that too much right now. So that's Singularity Chaos, and that's artifact refactoring. Exotic artifacts also have a higher attribute score ceiling. So mythics have 3 rows of attributes, while exotics have 4 rows. And this will give you more power overall just by investing into exotic artifacts, even if the attributes themselves aren't something you particularly want to use. So that's where you get them, right? You've then got the 3rd bullet point on that list we talked about before, which was gear level, artifact perk level, and now number 3, artifact enhancement. And this is the same as weapon enhancement. So the higher you go, the more power that artifact will give you. And the 4th point on our list is artifact gilding. This requires you to spend elemental fruits to increase power, and the power increase from gilding increases with your artifact perk level. Gilding is one of the biggest material sinks when it comes to power level and acclaim. It is very expensive to invest into, so carefully choose which characters you want to focus on. And also, a word of warning, artifact gilding is irreversible. So that's artifact gilding. And to do artifact gilding, you need all 3 elements of elemental fruits. And as you progress further into gilding, you'll also require a material that only comes from the Expanse. So the Expanse, we mentioned a second ago, is similar to Singularity Order. It's basically 10 stages and uses roguelike modifiers, but it increases in difficulty after every 3 stages. And this is definitely considered endgame content. So if you can't complete all the stages here, that's okay, because you're still going to get rewards after completing stages 3, 6, 9, and then a final reward from stage 10. So persevering just to stage 4 or something is still worth here. And luckily, the Expanse isn't required for you to complete until you're in the gold medal stage of Acclaim. So like I said, this is very much in endgame territory. And speaking of endgame, as you can probably tell from the fact that we're mentioning it, that basically brings us from having started with just the main quest all the way at the beginning, all the way through to some of the highest level systems in the game. Like, you crack this artifact gilding sort of system, and you make sure that you're getting your acclaim levels as high as possible, and you will be a really proficient Destiny Rising player. But that doesn't mean that you know everything about the game yet, and so I'm going to give you some miscellaneous tips now that are just going to be helpful on your overall journey. This is going to be like a rapid fire tips section, and they're all going to be distinct from one another. So I'm just going to start rattling off information right now. So number 1, joining a clan, which are called packs in game, is really important to do. Highly recommend, even if you don't interact with your clanmates often, because packs offer even more ways to gain materials with the pack exchange. Next tip, Iron Commander is really helpful if you're trying to min-max your material gains every day. So this is going to use 20 pinnacle energy to purchase ops authorizations, and you can use those to dispatch a team of your characters out into activities, and by doing this, they'll earn you more rewards than if you just spent pinnacle energy doing the activity normally. So when you're doing this, you've got to meet at least 2 of the requirements for base rewards. And if you meet all 3 of the dispatch requirements, you earn 10% more rewards. And this is super helpful if you're trying to get the most rewards from activities. However, there's a catch, and that's that you're limited on how many of them you can do per day. Acclaim allows you to spend bronze medals to increase the amount of these that you can do every day, and that's up to a maximum of 3 times. For our next tip, if you go to the shop, you can go to the different exchange tabs, and this will allow you to check for materials that you need now or in the future. This is an amazing way to gain extra materials if you're out of pinnacle energy, but you've still got some remaining available to buy that week. And this also allows you to stockpile materials for future character upgrades if you want to hold on to them as well. And a bonus tip for this is that some materials in the different exchange tabs are on a monthly limit, not a weekly limit. So just keep that in mind. Next, the black market is another great source of materials. and exotic catalysts, and exotic mods. Black market coins can be earned by being in an active pack, like I mentioned before, buying bundles in the shop as well, and by buying the Tree of Light's Blessing monthly subscription. Next, Destination Reputation offers quite a few rewards that are worthwhile, and reputation is easily gained by doing daily commissions and exploration objectives. Next, if you get to a point in your progression where you're stuck, you can always just take a break until the next day when your pinnacle energy refreshes and gives you 120 more. But that said, every activity in the game can be farmed endlessly without pinnacle energy, and you'll just get reduced rewards. And this is different to a lot of other games in this genre where you're a little bit more capped in your progress unless you just wait and come back the next day. So this is quite a nice feature in Destiny Rising. But that said, it's also important for you to enjoy your time playing the game. So sometimes it might just be a better idea to just come back to the game the next day rather than endlessly farming in the moment and then burning out. Like, Acclaim levels are a slow burn, so you don't need to try and rush it or force it, just take your time. So that's my overall guide to getting started with the Destiny Rising and getting to Endgame. I hope it's been useful for you. If it has been, then consider hitting the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.